Hello and welcome. You're here at the martech Alliance Marketing Technology Book Club. I'm your host, Carlos Doughty, and the founder of martech Alliance. You can find out a little bit more about us at martechalliance.com. But today we're here to chat with the godfather of martech, Mr. Scott Brinker, and his fantastic book, Hacking Marketing.
Thank you. Great to be here with you.
Really do appreciate you meeting with us. Could you give us a little bit more background about yourself?
Sure. So I wear a couple hats. I've been a software entrepreneur in the marketing and technology space for many years. Was the chief technology officer of a marketing tech company called Interactive, made interactive content software. And I'm now currently the VP platform ecosystem at HubSpot. So for my day job, you say, it's all about marketing technology and how do you connect these things together.
Day and night job. You surely don't sleep when you have things you have to do.
Yes, because the other hat, about 10 years ago, I started the blog chiefmartec.com. Just fascinated by this intersection between really the community of marketing and the community of technologists. And so that blog has taken on a life of its own. Ran a conference, martech conference, wrote this book, Hacking Marketing. So yeah, 24 hours a day in one form or another. It's martech, CHIEFMARTEC, without the H, long story, .com, and also at chiefmartec on Twitter.
So just on that point, on the spelling of martech, and your exact definition of martech, can you describe to our listeners exactly how you would define martech or marketing technology?
Sure. Well, I mean, the easy version is it's technology used for marketing. And I think what's kind of fascinating is when I think about martech, it's not just the technology, the software. To me, it's increasingly a profession that exists around this. It's a set of people. I call them marketing technologists who either they were technologists who got very excited about engaging customers in marketing, or they were marketers who got fascinated with what the technology could enable. And they've kind of blended these two professions into a hybrid. And I think actually that's the much cooler aspect of what's happening in martech than just the software itself.
And would you define yourself as a technology marketer or a marketing technologist?
And it's just like the chocolate and peanut butter, or peanut butter and chocolate. You know, to me, it almost doesn't matter where you want to lay the emphasis. I think where things what makes martech work is actually trying to synthesize those into, it's not marketing tech or tech and marketing, it's martech. It's all blended together, and it's kind of hard to separate out the different threads anymore.
Thank you. And jumping into the book, if you had to describe it, and this will be tough, hacking marketing in just one tweet.
Just one tweet. Wow. So as I'm speaking, I have to be counting
my characters.
Thank God they expanded it a bit.
Don't worry, you don't need the hashtags. Don't worry about that.
Okay. All right. Hashtag. So I think the essence of hacking marketing was, as marketing becomes more and more software driven, it starts to look a lot like the software profession, right? You're manipulating all these digital creations, to impact users or marketing customers. And so the idea of hacking marketing is, well, wow, if marketing is really kind of this next generation form of software, why can't we take all these lessons that the software community learned on how to manage that kind of environment and apply them now to marketing? So Agile is like a great example of that.
I love that. You definitely went over the character count.
I know. Well, I did one. One of seven. Two of seven.
That's what you should start with. Great stuff. So one of the key things your book focused around was adopting an agile marketing approach. You recently published a survey which talked about how 37% of the market have embraced this. For the remaining 63%, what would you do to convince them, or is your view that actually an agile marketing approach isn't necessarily the exact approach for everybody?
So one of the things I loved about that study, and it was actually conducted by Andrea Freier of Agile Sherpas, is the study, when you dig into it, it actually shows that many different marketers are adopting very different flavors of Agile. There isn't sort of a one-size-fits-all. Because I think what I would convince the other majority, the elite majority, right, we can call them that now, is that your world is moving faster than ever. You know it. I almost guarantee the number one management problem you have is how do we keep up with the pace of change? And the whole benefit of all these different agile management methodologies is to provide a solution to that challenge, to make it easier for your teams to be able to learn and adapt at a much faster rate. And if you don't need that, then great. If you're in a business where, like, if you're in government, you know, trust fund, anything, like, you're good there. But for the rest of us,
so that ties in very nicely to my next point. So the principle for me that I pulled out and loved most about your book was around adopting a bimodal marketing approach. For anybody not familiar, could you describe in practical terms what that looks like and what people can do to look about instilling this in their organization?
So one of the things when I was writing the book, I was really struck by is how marketers are usually asked to do the impossible today, right? I mean, marketing is pretty much an Olympic sport at this point, right? It's really hard.
That's what makes it fun as well, right?
Yes. Well, one of the reasons it's so challenging is because you've got these opposing responsibilities. On one hand, marketing really should be about scale, right? How do you scale, you know, the messaging, you know, customer acquisition, customer success? And when you look at the things people have to do to achieve scale, right? It's about, you know, standardization, it's finding something that works, it's exploiting it, you know, so there's this whole set of motions that marketers writ large have been tasked with. But now that the world is also changing so fast, those exact same marketers are also being called, in addition to all that scalability, we also need you to innovate, experiment, figure out stuff. So, right, you know, they're trying all these new things. It's the fail fast. It's, you know, let me explore a very wide landscape. I'll try a lot of things. A number of them won't work. You know, trying to find those new gems that you will then feed into that scalability engine. And so this is really, really hard. And one of the challenges I think a lot of marketers have is they're trying to come up with one way to manage both of those sets of responsibilities. And it's almost impossible because those are two very different kinds of motions. And so what I recommend with this bimodal marketing framework is this idea of saying you really kind of actually want to divide this into two buckets in the way you run your marketing organization. You want to be clear on what your scalability motions are and the things that are your stable foundation and run them for that sort of optimization. But you also want to carve out that space for this experimentation and innovation, because if you don't do that, I mean, eventually the scalable model, it's fine for this quarter, next quarter, but it starts to trail off as the world just changes around you.
Great. And just sticking with innovation, one bit that jumped out to me, you talked a lot about marketing being in a state of perpetual beta. Beyond adopting a bimodal approach, and actually anything that outside of what's included in your book, what advice would you give for anybody really looking to drive innovation in their marketing team, developing that culture of innovation?
Yeah, well, I think you put your finger on it. It is a cultural shift. You know, the technology changes. You can evaluate the individual ones, but the problem that most organizations wrestle with is, at the end of the day, this is a people changing challenge. You know, yourself, your own mindset, the way you're approaching it, you know, your own people. Part of it's skills, right? You need to have these programs in place and ways to continually allow people to develop new skills with these new technologies. I think even more so, it's just this mindset shift of getting people into a mode where things like experimentation and A/B testing and you know, ways of you know, structuring innovative experiments so that, you know, you don't spend a lot of time and money to, you know, get some very quick learnings, you know, figure out how to scale it up. These are very different motions than how most marketing organizations have typically operated. And yet it's a lot of work to change that worldview.
And with that same point, you talked about the idea of building 10x marketers. I love the idea. How much is a dream versus reality is one part, but the other part, I suppose, is what do you think is really needed to either develop or acquire that type of talent?
Yeah, so I absolutely think it's realistic in the sense that the digital environment, both the tools, but also just this, you know, distribution that you potentially have. If you've got something that really resonates and really works, you can get this incredible multiplier effect on it. But it has to be really good, and that can't be overstated how important it is, to appreciate the sort of talent, that can build things and create things that have that sort of resonance. So I think one of the things, if you're trying to attract that talent, that marketing executives can learn from the software world, is it is kind of hard to make that talent, right? I mean, there are some people who, God bless them, they're just gifted, in certain ways. So really what you're doing is you're looking for that talent, and the thing that attracts them most isn't money. I mean, don't get me wrong, money, nice, everyone likes that. What really turns on, usually that top quartile, of marketing creators, is being given the freedom and the power to actually create things, to do good work. You've seen this in software organizations where the very best developers, if they're given the resources and, the authority to be able to go build, create, they do amazing things. They get such satisfaction. If on the other hand, you're like, okay, so we're gonna have this committee meeting over how this, and we're gonna review these designs here, and don't worry, there'll be 7 other people who give you feedback on, what you're doing, and you can check in. I mean, they're like, all right, screw this is just not fun,
Autonomy is the answer.
It is, and again, this actually goes back to, this challenge for organizations is the ability to move faster and to adapt faster, and autonomy, to the right sort of talented people. It's actually one of the great ways to achieve that acceleration in what marketing can produce.
And thinking more broadly, if you're a CMO right now, obviously, big task, massive task in front of you, what one bit of advice would you give them in terms of really driving their marketing technology strategy?
So marketing technology strategy absolutely has to be derived from what is your, what's your marketing strategy? What's your, and like what I usually recommend to anyone who's looking at building out their marketing tech stack is to say, all right, put aside the tech. If you got one of those crazy landscapes, toss it in the wastebasket, and draw for me what your customer journey is. And I know it doesn't have to be exactly linear, but what are the different touch points that customers have with you? What are their expectations of each of these touch points? What would you need to do to deliver a really compelling experience to them in each one of them? Because that's, at the end of the day, what you're trying to frame is what capabilities do we need to have the best relationship with our customers? I think Darth Vader's coming here or something. Like if you get that really clear, then you start to work back and look at marketing technologies to say, okay, what technologies will support those kinds of capabilities?
It's about what will enable and accelerate rather than starting with the technology first.
Yes.
And obviously, you published a book in 2016. If you were publishing right now, what extra chapter would you add? What would you focus on? Or is there possibly a new book in the making?
Oh, there's always a new book in the making, right? Yeah, so, getting it actually on paper is another challenge entirely. But no, I think it's actually become even more so. Like one of the concepts that I've been really fascinated with is this, I'll call it the citizen technologist movement. And you hear it in the terms of like citizen developer, citizen integrator, citizen data scientist. And if you haven't heard these terms, it might sound a little funny at first, but what's happened is there's a set of technology that's growing out there that allows non-technical people to be able to sit down and through a drag and drop interface actually build useful software programs or do their own relatively in-depth data analysis or be able to integrate different services from across the cloud and orchestrate them. And this is amazing. This is unlocking so much power for those autonomous individuals to be able to build things that before used to take like, oh yeah, I'm going to need the IT team and they'll get back to me next year.
I've got a briefing,
right? Exactly.
Hope.
Right? I mean, this is game changing. And to me, this is just a further acceleration of the concepts of hacking marketing that, the tools are giving individuals the power to have enormous impact, that 10x impact. But you've got to have the management structure to allow that to happen.
And on that point, on the management structure, what organizations do you think are doing a fantastic job in delivering a solid marketing technology strategy? Not HubSpot, that's a given.
Well, of course.
Excluding HubSpot, who else do you think is doing a fantastic job?
There's a lot. So, and one of the things I think you have to be really careful is, going back to this earlier statement that so much is changing for everyone. I don't think I know a single marketing executive that has sat down with me in the past 2 years and said, we got this totally under control. This is set. No, that's easy street. We figured it out.
Scott, we don't need to talk about marketing technology. We've got that sorted.
Yep, the clouds have parted. We're good. So how's it, the baseball game? So every company is at just different stages, and so one of the things I try and do with, the marketing conference is get folks who have at least figured out one piece of it, and they're willing to come and share their story of, okay, this is how we do it. And it's maybe not perfect, and if you ask me 6 months from now, we probably will have discovered, oh, actually, forgot something here, but anyone who's willing to basically say, share what it is they're learning through this evolution, from marketing of last century to marketing of this century. I think there's a lot of heroes in there, so it's kind of hard to just even pick one or two. But, yeah. Okay.
And we've talked a lot about how there's exponential change in technology and marketing. What do you think is going to change in the next 2 to 5 years? What technology is going to will create the most disruption and the most opportunity? Do you think blockchain, voice? We can have another buzzword in there. But if you had to sign off on one area you think is going to cause the greatest level of disruption and opportunity?
All right, I will answer that question, but I have to first caveat and say, it's predicting the future that is really, really hard. I mean, think about even stuff like blockchain, right? 5 years ago, who would have even been talking about that as something that would disrupt marketing? Yeah. What could Bitcoin ever have to, and now all of a sudden people, in the past couple of years, it's been this growing recognition of, wow, this technology and this structure could be used for really changing a whole bunch of the major problems we have with visibility and attribution, and what's the power balance between, marketers and channels and the actual end users, the consumers, right? So I think it would have been really hard if you'd asked someone 5 years ago, they would have, even if they had some precognition that allowed them to pull it out of thin air and say, it'll be blockchain, you'll be like, what the hell is blockchain? So one problem with trying to predict the future even today is 5 years from now, there's going to be stuff that's come on the scene that you and I, at least I couldn't even imagine now. So the thing that'll probably be the biggest change is something we don't even know about right now. That being said, out of all the fun stuff that's happening right now, boy, this sounds so cliche, the two that I think are really, truly going to change is artificial intelligence, and not because it's some great big eye in the sky that just magically will do all of our marketing for us, but because the speed at which these machine learning algorithms are able to synthesize all this data to help give us the kinds of insights and actionability at scale that we've never had before. That is really going to change the practice of marketing tremendously. And the other, I think, is blockchain, because of the fact that, particularly in areas around ad tech and, issues now with GDPR and data privacy, there's a very screwed up ecosystem right now around individuals and their data and
look at this stuff with Facebook.
Yes, exactly, right. And so if a lot of that marketing is just sort of built into its cost of doing business for decades, and now because of regulation, it's being forced to rethink that. And at the same time, as blockchain technology is starting to offer a glimmer, there actually might be a solution to this. But yeah, you think of a world where consumers perhaps really, truly do control their data, and it reverses this entire relationship between marketers and consumers. I mean, incredibly innovative and exciting and disruptive, but oh my goodness, probably emphasis on disruptive for marketing as we know it today.
Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really do appreciate you having taken the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for everyone who's been listening. If you haven't already, make sure you pick up a copy of Scott's book.